going to show you exactly how I borrow money and make even more money with that money. But this idea didn't just come out of nowhere. It actually started from one short Instagram reel that I saw in 2022 with Damon from Shark Tank. He said something that completely changed how I look at money. He said that rich people buy stocks, they never sell them, and they borrow against them. They use those loans to buy even more shares. Until this point in my life, I had thought that I had done everything right, but that Instagram reel completely changed my life. And at that moment, I knew that I had to figure out how to do this myself. So here's the secret that most people never figure out. It's how you filter money so that it's always working for you that's important with every dollar that comes in. Let me show you exactly what I mean by that. So I have an ebook titled Money Isn't Real that I wrote after seeing that Instagram reel from Damon from Shark Tank. And here is a summary of what I do now. This is obviously, so the ebook's like 30 pages, and this is just one page of the ebook. This is called the money filtration system. So what you do is you buy assets with money that's coming in, and I am very heavy in the tech sector, so I earn typically around 17 to 20%. You spend the money that you need to spend on credit cards, earning rewards, typically 1.5 to 2% cash back. You borrow money back from your assets, and I will show you soon exactly what that looks like, to then pay off those credit cards so you aren't ever paying interest on the credit cards without ever selling shares. This allows your stocks to grow indefinitely, and there's this big spread between the two. What I mean by that is imagine that you borrow at 6% and you earn 17%. You have an 11% spread on money that isn't even yours that's growing. So, how does this work? You start out with a brokerage account. I use M1 Finance. You can use Robinhood. It doesn't matter. Those two get very good interest rates. There are others that get interest rates as well. And what you do is you invest your money. You buy, typically, I would recommend ETFs, but you can do this with individual stocks. It does come with a lot more risk. And then what you do is you borrow back from those stocks to then buy more stocks. So here you can see my debt, you can see my interest rate, and you can see my margin health. So before we get too far, none of this is legal advice, financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, and I am not responsible for any actions you take. So if margin health goes to zero, this is why you would get margin called. They would sell all your shares. This is why I do not do this with individual stocks. It's far less risky to do this with powerful ETFs. And your loan balance, like if this gets too high, it can get out of hand. You can get too big of a monthly payment, and your payment can go up over time. So I can show you exactly what that looks like here too. So I started, like I said, in 2022, and I had $45,000 invested. So 20,000 was my own money. I had called the bank and I took out a loan for $18,000 at 2% interest, and I invested that, and then I started to use margin to buy more and more shares. On the right side, you can see my bill, meaning how much margin I have. Sorry, that would be right here. My debt, how much I have borrowed, but that's not all the way back. I don't have the data all the way back to then. But you can get an idea of what it was. It got up to be about $40,000, and then the interest rate just kept going up and up. So you can see the power of this too, how much my total net worth on this side had grown. It didn't grow here until the bear market ends. So just so you know, growth is very, very powerful, but during bear markets, you don't see really any growth. Sometimes you see some decline, and you might see that you stay steady depending how much cash you're investing during that time. But when it ends, oh man, are you rewarded. So to give you an idea, today my portfolio is about 5 times bigger than what it was at that time. What is that actually like? 8 or 9 times bigger, actually. And my total value has also gone up from 68 to 588. And my growth is based on this total value. So here is where it gets really crazy. With this system, you can earn money with money that's not even your own. So what I mean by that is what I had said earlier. Imagine that my debt here, the 140, so it costs me 5.15%, and it can earn me this year. It has earned me year to date, just since January, I'm up 33%. Not with just the 140, but my entire portfolio. So imagine that the 140 is earning a 33% return, right? I would have made around $46,000 with money that's not even my own money. And then the debt on that is very little. So 40, the 140 times, it cost me about $7,200 in holding costs to carry this debt, right? So my dividends do cover about a third of my debt, and the growth is just so worth it. I'm creating money out of nothing with money that's not even my own money. With this new information that I had figured out, I set out to create a blueprint and a system that I could do this safely and quickly with. And I wrote my ebook, Money Isn't Real, the full system that I now follow that grew me a $500,000 portfolio in just 4 years. And to give you an idea, one other thing that I talk about in here is called the lazy paycheck versus the wealthy paycheck. I have talked about this in other videos, but most people, what they do is their money is going into these different buckets. And if they have anything left, maybe it goes to investments. But what the wealthy do is all of their money goes to their investments and then they borrow it back to live. I cannot illustrate how powerful this is. Imagine all of your money going to your investments. So instead of like 200 a month or 50 a month or whatever dollar value, it can be your entire paycheck. And I don't have an emergency fund. I have moved this bucket over to my investments. So until 2022, I had been saving my entire life. I grew up in a middle class family and I was a saver. I was taught that you just need to save your money, save your money. And after figuring this out, I realized that I'd been lied to my entire life about money. So, one huge mistake that I made during all of this was that since I had always been a saver, I didn't realize how important it was. I just thought I didn't need to track my income and expenses. I figured that I always have money left over, so why bother tracking it? But with that being said, I was missing a ton of opportunity. I wasn't seeing exactly how much money was coming in and out. And as you grow, it's so important that you track your income and expenses. Let me get to the bottom of the spreadsheet here. So it started out really simple. So I just had the properties, the income they bring in, so rental properties. And I didn't do this until a year and a half after I had this life changing moment from that Instagram reel. I have my expenses here, the cash flow. So this would be primary residence. So I actually have a couple roommates back at this time in 2023. And then I track the loan balance, how much it gets paid down, and then what the home is estimated value at. So what gives you your equity over here would be your home estimate, like your value of your home, minus your balance. So how much you could sell the home for, minus what you owe on the home. And then I tracked how much at the time my value in M1 Finance was 137, and I had $20,000 remaining. I had a loan on my car for 10,000. And then here I add up all of these numbers. This is when I still had an emergency fund, and I get my total down here, and I add up all my debt, get my total down here, monthly payment right here, and this changes. So I had decided, since it changes so often, that it was also important to track this. The interest rate changes so often. I live off of a line of credit, so it's very important that I don't let this go to zero and that I track this. To give you an idea, let's look where my emergency fund disappears. At a certain point, I figured out that it was just costing me so much money to hold this emergency fund. You can see that my cash was going down, and then around 10,000, 11,000. That includes security deposits for tenants. Here you can see that it went down to 8,000. So by this time I had finally figured out, like, hey, what am I holding all this cash for when I could just use it I could borrow it back if I need it. What is the point of paying 7% interest, right? My interest rate was 7.25%. Why would I pay 7% interest every single month when I can just borrow the cash back if I need to? I had an $85,000 line of credit. To give you an idea of today, it is a little more complicated. And I do give this for free away with my masterclass, this entire spreadsheet. And it's very valuable to track these things. If you aren't tracking these things, I would highly recommend you do it. I started doing all of my income and expenses as I just didn't know how much money was coming in or going out. And it was getting so hard to keep track of if I was making money as I grew bigger and bigger. So even when you're starting out, if you don't think it's that important, it really is. So, hope that gives you a lot of value. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Helps me get that out there into the algorithm and help as many people as I possibly can. I will see you next time.